Well, I'll probably keep it pretty informal since it's just a handful of us, but, so I said who I am, but I'm Caitlin, again, I'm from the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. We're considering a draft addendum to, it has options in there to consider lowering the coastwide harvest cap for yellow eel, and then there's also some options related to the monitoring and stuff that's going on, so I'll go through all of those. But just in case you're not familiar with the commission, I'll start off with an overview of what the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission is, and then go through the statement of the problem on this addendum, background information, and then I'll go through all of the different options that we're considering, and then at the end of all of that, if you would like to make public comments, you can definitely do that. So the commission is a interstate management body. That's all of the states from Maine to Florida, and it was formed in 1942, and so it's a deliberative forum for all of the coastal states to make management decisions about fishery resources that are shared between multiple states. And our jurisdiction is focused from 0 to 3 miles state waters, and each state has 3 commissioners that will sit on the management board for a particular species like eel, and they'll have 1 vote per state when they're making any kind of management decisions. So with this addendum, draft addendum 7 for eel, this is addressing the depleted stock status for American eel, and the fact that our assessment hasn't been able to provide us with biologically based reference points to set management measures with. So instead of that, we've had this coastwide cap since 2015, and that's how the yellow eel fishery is managed. Our recent stock assessment in 2023 was still unable to provide those biological reference points, but it did identify a different tool that we can use to provide some management advice. So that's called iTarget, and this addendum is considering some options that will use that instead of the current coastwide cap that's just static. So this is just the motion that the board made, responding to the assessment results, and the assessment specifically recommended that we reduce the catch of yellow eels. So this addendum is considering options that will use this iTarget tool to consider caps that are lower than the current cap. This is just to show you the coastwide trends in the curvy line is the yellow eel abundance index, and the black line is the landings of American eel, yellow eel, coastwide. So this is just to show the trends in both of those and how they've been declining over time. And then in addition to the yellow eel coastwide cap options, this addendum has some options in there that are about state monitoring requirements, and these options are based on recommendations that came out of the stock assessment and the technical committee. So first, there's the assessment indicated that the young of year surveys that are done by the states that we were just talking about, actually, in those surveys, currently they're required to sample and take all of the individual lengths and pigment stage of all of the eels. But the assessment found that those data have not really been helpful for the assessment, so we're considering an option to make that optional. And then there's also monitoring requirements in terms of the catch per unit effort data that's collected in the harvester reports. And we also found in the assessment that those data have not been able to inform coastwide trends in yellow eel, so we're considering making that optional as well. This is the timeline that we've been working with for developing this addendum. So we started with the board initiating it in August, and then our plan development team put together the document that you have, and now we're in our public comment period since the board approved that document for public comment. So we're doing that through March 24th. And then once we have all the public comments, the board will be able to consider those and choose final management options in the spring 2024. Our meeting is in 1st of May, so technically May. So this is how the proposed management options in the document are laid out. They're separated by issue of what they're addressing. So that first section, 3.1, is the options related to the commercial yellow eel management and the coastwide cap. And then section 3.2 deals with the time frame for the yellow eel provisions. Section 3.3 is about the young of year survey sampling requirements. And then 3.4 is about the catch per unit effort, harvester reporting requirements. And then lastly, we have some options about de minimis status, and I'll explain that when we get to it. So starting with issue 1 in section 3.1, our current cap is 916,473 pounds. So that's for all the states combined. And that's been in place since 2015. Well, ACAP has been in place since 2015. It changed once in 2019. But that's our status quo option, would be to just maintain that cap. And then the 4 additional options that I'll go over next are using that iTarget tool to set a range of different caps. So to explain what this tool is, it's a trend-based tool that can be used for managing data-limited fisheries, which eel is, and it only needs data from landings and then abundance indices, which is that graph I showed you earlier, to provide the management advice. So because we have those 2 data sets for yellow eel, we're able to use this tool, and it can provide a range of catch caps based on what's happening in the trends with those data, as well as the goals that management is going to kind of also add in to that equation. So essentially we have 3 data inputs. First is where we are, which is, which is the historical catch and abundance of eel, where we are, which is the current abundance level, and then where we want to be, which is a target abundance goal that we're aiming for. And then iTarget is going to provide us with a recommended catch cap that will aim to achieve that goal. And this is just to visualize that a little better. So we put in these data with historical catch and abundance and the current abundance level, as well as a target abundance level, and then we get out of iTarget a catch cap that will hopefully get us to that target. And then in addition to these basics, there are 3 parameters that have to be set when you're using this tool. And so these are the reference period, the multiplier, and the threshold. And the reference period is meant to be a time period where the eel abundance is stable or at a desirable level. So that's going to be a historical period of time that we're comparing our target level to. And then the multiplier is what will establish what the target abundance is, where we want to be. So if the multiplier is set to 1, that means we're aiming to achieve the same abundance as the average during the reference period that we choose. If you set the multiplier to 1.25, that means we're aiming to achieve 25% higher than the abundance level from the reference period that we choose. And then this last thing here is a threshold value, and that is a setting of iTarget that kind of depends on the goals of the managers and how much risk they're willing to tolerate. So a lower threshold is less conservative, so it's more risk tolerant, and it would generally result in a higher catch cap. And then a higher threshold is more conservative, less risk tolerant, and generally results in lower catch caps. So in the 4 options that I'll go through next, there are 2 different reference periods that are being used in the different options. So those are identified by the blue shading and the yellow shading. So our first reference period is the blue shaded area, and that's 1974 to 1987. And that reference period is where the abundance was higher. So that means the population was bigger relative to the later years then. And then the yellow area is the more recent reference period, which is 1988 to 1999. And that's a period of lower abundance compared to the other reference period, but it's still a little larger than in the most recent decades. So this is showing all 4 of the different options besides status quo for catch caps. So options 2 and 3 are both using the earlier reference period from that last graph, and they're both using a multiplier value of 1.25. So that means they're both aiming to achieve a stock abundance that's 25% greater than the average abundance from 1974 to 1987. And then the difference between those 2 options, sorry, I'm getting over a cold, but just drink some water. The difference between those two is just the threshold value. So option 2 uses a value of 0.8. That is the higher value, that's more conservative, and then option 3 uses 0.5, and that's less conservative. So you can see that the catch cap in option 2 is lower than the catch cap in option 3. And then for options 4 and 5, we're using the later reference period. And they both use a threshold value of 0.5, so that's the less conservative threshold value. But option 4 uses a multiplier of 1.5, and option 5 uses a multiplier of 1.25. So that means these two options are aiming for different abundance levels in the population. So the option 4 is aiming for 50% greater abundance than the average in the reference period, and then option 5 is aiming for 25% greater abundance. So just to show you how those compare to each other in terms of the abundance that they're aiming to achieve, the target abundance increases from the bottom up. So options 2 and 3 are aiming for the highest level of target abundance, and then option 5 is aiming for the lowest target, and option 4 is between those. And this graph shows the different coastwide caps that would come out of each of those proposed options compared to the current coastwide cap, which is the black dashed line at the top, as well as compared to the yellow eel landings since 2015, which are the yellow bars. So you can see here that the current cap has not been exceeded by since 2016. And then of the alternative options, option 5 results in the highest cap, but landings haven't exceeded that option either since 2018. So functionally, that has pretty low potential to reduce fishing mortality of yellow eels, which is what the stock assessment recommends. And then the caps under 3 and 4 are very similar. They're the two lines in the middle, and landings haven't exceeded those levels since 2019. And then option 2 is that lowest coastwide harvest cap, and landings have exceeded that cap in all of the years since 2015. So functionally, that means it would have more potential to reduce fishing mortality. So that's the iTarget options, and then these are options related to what happens if we exceed that coastwide cap. So if the total coastwide landings exceed the cap, currently the way it works is that if it exceeds the cap by 10% for 2 years in a row, then the states whose landings are more than 1% of the coastwide total would be responsible for reducing their landings to bring it back down to that cap. And then option 2 would change this response a little bit, just so that the states whose landings are greater than 5% would be responsible for lowering their landings to achieve the coastwide cap. And so that change just means that more states in option 1, more states are responsible for lowering their landings in the subsequent year than in option 2. And to see kind of how this shakes out, the yellow and gray shaded cells are all of the states whose landings were greater than 1% of the coastwide total in that year. So all of those states, gray and yellow, would have to reduce their landings if the coastwide cap were exceeded. But then if you just look at the gray cells, those are the states whose landings are greater than 5% of the coastwide total in a given year. So under option 2, it would only be those states that are shaded in gray that would be responsible in the next years for lowering their landings. So the next set of options are related to the time frame for these yellow eel cap provisions. Option 1 is that the cap wouldn't have a sunset date, so it would stay in place indefinitely unless the board initiated a new addendum to change it. But it would have to remain in place, the same cap, for 3 years before it's updated. And that's just to provide enough years of data to kind of have the ability to evaluate that cap. And then option 2 is that, again, it wouldn't change unless the board initiated a new addendum, but it could be updated after 5 years. And to explain what I mean by updated, it's that with iTarget, like I said, you put in the 2 time series of abundance and landings. So when we update the cap, what we would do is put in the additional years that we had, since if we start today and we have 3 more years of data, at that point we would be able to add those data into the tool, and it would provide a new cap that takes those data into account. But it doesn't mean that we would change the reference period, the multiplier, or the the threshold. Those would all have to stay the same unless the board did a separate management document to change it. So moving on from the cap, we have these options about the Young of Year survey. So these are performed by state staff, so they really wouldn't affect fishermen, but option 1 is status quo, which means that it would still be required to take those lengths and pigment stages for each of the eels sampled in the Young of Year survey, and then option 2 would make those sampling requirements optional. And then section 3.4 is on the catch and effort monitoring requirements. So currently under our management program, the states are required to collect harvester trip reports of trip level data of CPV data. So under option 1, that requirement would be maintained and states would still have to require that those data are reported. And then option 2 would make those data, the collection of those data, optional. So states could continue to collect them if they choose, but it wouldn't be required by our management plan at the commission. And then our last set of options here is about our de minimis policy. And what de minimis is, it's a status granted to states if their landings are less than 1% of the coastwide total, which Virginia is not. You guys have more significant landings than that, so this probably wouldn't affect you anytime soon. But essentially what we would do with option 1, we use the last 2 years of landings to make this decision about if a state is de minimis, and that would, option 1 would maintain that, and then option 2 would change it so that it aligns with what the broader commission is doing with other species, which is using an average of 3 years landings to determine whether the state's de minimis status or not. So that's all the options, and then this timeline just shows where we're going next. So at the spring meeting, the board will consider the public comments and the addendum, and if they approve that, they'll set the management measures and an implementation timeline for those. So we don't know yet when any changes would go into in effect. All right, and so now I will just go into the public comment part. So this is how you can submit written comments if that's what your preference is. There's either by email or mail, but just note that the deadline is March 24th at 11:59 p.m. So make sure to get them in before then, or else the board won't be able to consider them. But if you would like to provide comments today, then I would just ask you to, I'm going to start recording first, but I'll just ask you to give your name and your state for the record, and then any like organization affiliations that you might have. And we really just want to hear what options you prefer or don't prefer and why. So that's kind of what we're looking for in terms of comments. So if you have any questions, we can do that first and make sure.
So this doesn't affect the over eel fishery?
No, this is just about yellow eels.
How is that? I mean, that's one of the biggest black markets that's out there.
Yeah, so we have a separate addendum right now, draft addendum 6, that is looking at glass eels, but it's focused just on Maine because Maine is the only state that has a significant fishery. So it's considering
Legal fishery.
legal.
It's done in every
Legal
state.
fishery.
It's just a huge black market thing.
Yeah, we don't have a management action that's addressing that right now. It's kind of up to the states to have their enforcement look into those.
No, I mean, I agree on that too, but then,
Yeah.
and then, you know, end of that is, you don't have no babies, you don't have no big ones.
Yeah.
You know, and elver eels that come from Maine, that are in Maine, affect our fishery too, because they come down to turn into silver eels. They don't completely grow in a lot of places.
Yeah.
You know, when they turn into silver eels and go to the Saragossa Sea, they, you know what I mean, it's here, Maryland. Maryland is small eels. You don't have big eels. You get big eels when you get into Carolina. And that's where they end their life at, you know, before they go to the Saragossa Sea. So, I mean, I don't get how you can, I mean, it's kind of like common sense. You gotta have babies, have big ones.
Yeah. No, that's true. It's just,
You know what I mean? And
this
it's a
addendum
huge
is
black
addressing
market thing. You know, I
yellow
don't
eel.
understand why. I've been wondering that for years. I mean, I get it. If I could go out there and get $6,000 to $10,000 a pound, I mean, that'd be great. But, you know, I mean, once again, it's another thing where, you know,
Yeah.
There have been sting operations in the past where they've caught them. I know in this state, there was a ring of them that were doing it that the leader went to jail, federal jail for about 4 years.
oh yeah.
But, I mean, they're far and in between. I mean, that's the problem with it. And it's like,
Yeah.
but if you think you know
Well, people,
somebody,
you know, you take a BMRC officer now, if I'm messing with elver eels, he ain't gonna have an idea what I'm doing. even if he stops me.
Depends.
I mean, it depends a lot, but a lot of PMRC officers, you know what I mean, it's just like with any type of regulation, you know what I mean? If you got, where is he gonna have to go find people to do elbows, to head to dams, when is he up there? When is he up there riding on a boat? If he sees me with a pack of pantyhose in the marsh, how's he gonna know what I'm doing with them pantyhose?
Well, I'll tell you
You know,
what.
nobody's ever seen that, you know what I'm saying?
When
And
I worked at
that's a thing
VIMS,
that-
when I worked at VIMS, one of the things we did, because we were going to so many sites where we would call the law enforcement and tell them, hey, or we'd find the gear in the water. I mean, we'd trip over it as we're walking in the stream, because it's a lot of times, and then we just report it and let them get it. But we had several times where they were poaching out of our equipment, because we set our equipment in a certain way, we knew for sure, and they caught the guys. I mean, they caught them red-handed, you know, like 2 days later, walking with a bucket in their hand. And, I mean, it's just, you get the word out to them and let them know, or like, and we can, you know, when you guys go out with VIMS tomorrow, remind them, I mean,
Yeah.
we used to be pretty good about doing
They
that.
do
about
call.
Huh?
They do call.
Yeah,
We are very, just so you know, we are very aware that there is black market coming out of Virginia. Just can't really talk too much about it, but we know.
Well, it definitely is, you know, I mean, it's seen all the time, you know, I've seen, I don't deal with it because I don't wanna go to a federal penitentiary, I like my gun rights.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, I don't mess with no felonies, you know, and that's, you know, beyond that is, you know, it's just, it amazes me that, you know, how much can go on without anybody noticing. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like the whole industry and the whole BMRC thing, you know what I mean, I kinda think the whole BMRC is a joke. You know, and I've been a commercial waterman for 20 years, you know, and, you know, done it seriously, and, you know, I'm probably one of the only youngest, most established commercial watermen in Virginia, besides a few. You know, I'm the only one that's, you know, I don't see a future in this industry. There's no kids 20 years old trying to get licensed and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, you know what I mean, and I speak up for it. You know, I think that a lot of stuff that goes on in, you know, not just this state, in a lot of states, is wrong. I mean, I think a lot of it's a lot of mishandling, you know what I mean, and a lot, you know, it's, you know, more to it than what sees it. And one reason behind your eel, you know, you see your eel, but it's not the people fishing that you used to, so you'll never see the poundage like it was.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem catching eels. You know what I mean? I can go set next week and go, you know, catch 5,000-10,000 pounds if I want.
Yeah.
Problem is selling.
yeah.
So does your perspective on it kind of give you any preferences for any of the management options that I just went over?
I mean, I see a lot of it, you know, and it's 716,000 pounds, we never touch it.
And another thing, if you set it to 200,000 pounds, they're just gonna stop reporting.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never figure it out.
That's very helpful.
You know, I'm not trying to be mean about it and say
Oh, no,
that we're
you're
all
not.
criminals and
No,
everything
no.
else, but, you know what I mean? What's gonna happen if you set that at 200,000 pounds, you'll never see that reach.
I think we're very aware of that.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They'll just stop reporting. Once again, it's nobody watching
A
us.
lot of our fisheries.
You know what I mean? It's nobody, you know, I've been eeling for 15, 20 years. I've never been checked. The only time I've ever had a BMRC officer is come beside me during the evening time, because you're allowed to fish 24 hours a day, and he thinks I'm crabbing. Comes beside me, sees I'm not crabbing leaves. You don't check me for license. You don't check my pots. You don't check my gear. You don't check my catch. You don't check nothing. That's 20 years. I've never been checked.
Yeah.
And I'm the last one that doesn't, and he can tell you on reports.
You drive our fishery for sure.
Caitlin, I had a question. What's the rationale behind, the catch and effort monitoring program doing away with option 2, doing away with the requirement of, catch per effort data?
Yeah, so we had discussions once the stock assessment came out. In the assessment process, they kind of told us that through analyzing all of the catch per unit effort data coming from each state, they couldn't really make anything of it in terms of a coast-wide trend. And so they said, hey, if it's too much of a monitoring burden to do this, we're not really getting anything out of it for the assessment, and so it's fine to make it optional. Now, what we've heard from states since then is that most states would continue to collect those data.
And one thing that I kind of get out about the whole thing is, you know, how I feel about it is, it doesn't, like, you know, I go back to the baby thing is, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure that one out. You gotta have baby chickens to have full-grown chickens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have no babies, you ain't gonna have no full-grown chickens.
And why would you attack something that's in the middle? That's like, let's kill all the big chickens, but just leave the babies for the people to get millions of dollars off of. Like, I mean, is somebody in the business getting greased and, you know, being able to be getting payouts and, you know what I mean? Is somebody on the commissionary board stopping that? Cause that doesn't sound like a scientist at all, or, you know what I mean, any type of person with common sense, you know what I mean? You gotta realize that you gotta have small ones to have big ones. And if you keep taking and taking and taking from the small ones, and you got all these alluvial fisheries and all these people doing it. I mean, you can go up there in the spring times in every single dam and find, you know, pantyhose. You can go find, you know, I mean, you go in the middle of a marsh and you find a pantyhose packet. There's a reason why there's a pantyhose packet there. And it's not because it washed up from some girl's drawer. You know what I mean? It's because somebody who's went there and took alluvials out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 90% of these people that do it aren't even, like, they're not even, you know, American people. You know what I mean? I've seen, you know, a lot of people do it. You know, and I've seen a lot of people try it, and every single one of them has not been a commercial fisherman. Because they got an idea that they can go stick a pantyhose and the tide's gonna carry them $5,000 into one little piece of pantyhose, and it's the truth. You'll never get reports on it.
Yeah.
You never be able, you know what I mean? That's, you know, I mean, I just don't understand how we get attacked over catching an adult eel, and then somebody that does a black market trade or does even alluvial fishing, you know, how it's supposed to be, and they get sent off to overseas, get farmed, and then people, you know what I mean, an American person only makes one sale off that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if you could sell to a buyer that's an alluvial, he makes 2 sales off that.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that.
You know, me buying eels, I go from a commercial fisherman to a, you know, me, and then, you know, commercial fisherman gets paid, I get paid, tackle shop gets paid, you know what I mean? It goes down the line and it stays into America.
Yeah.
Why would somebody want something that benefits another country?
Wasn't CITES looking at this at one point where?
Do we have an eel farm in the United States?
We do actually. We
There's
have
one
one.
in
We have one.
North
It's in
Carolina.
Maine.
Oh, there used to be one in North Carolina.
No,
Yeah,
there's
North
one.
Carolina shut down.
Yeah, that was Marty's, thing.
But
And that-
there is one in Maine that's been
American
increasing
New
their
Zealand
production over the last couple of years.
And that's what drives us out. That's why it's no markets, is because of the alluvial. So pretty much it just kills its own self. The whole alluvial fishery kills the whole eel. You know, it kills us catching them, it kills the cat. You know, it kills all this, you know, just from one, you know, source.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that, and, at the state level, I know that other states are also doing work to try and get the black market stuff under
Yeah.
control.
Please don't think that our law enforcement is unaware, they're very aware.
And just, you know, coming from what we're presenting here is more of a coast-wide look at things. And so if you prefer any of the catch numbers, cap numbers,
I
you
mean,
can
obviously,
that
I would like
comment.
the highest one because you never know how business would take you. But you know what I mean? I don't sell nowhere near them numbers. You know what I mean? Maryland is the #1 fishery where it all comes out.
Yeah,
You know, we don't have bait eels here to be able to sell to tackle shops. We have medium-sized eels. We don't have bait eels. You gotta go north to get bait eels. You know, so Maryland is the biggest, you know, output on it, and you only have 3 people that buy eels,
yeah,
you know, that are any type of scales. You know, Barry, Delaware Valley, and you got William Clayton. You know, and me. That's the 3 eel buyers left on the whole side of it that do any amount. You know, and there's a few small ones in between, but they're not anybody that tries to push market and try to grow it. You know, I have no chance of being able to grow it because there's alluvials.
yeah.
And they can farm raise them and grow them faster and cheaper than I can sell them to them. You know, and that's the thing, it's a dying industry. If it wasn't for tackle shops, they cancel cobia season, you'll never see another eel harvested here again.
I'm trying to work on that. I promise.
You know,
I got a long meeting coming up.
with a cobia fishery,
Yeah,
yeah, that's going downhill too.
not for long.
Yeah. Is it gonna grow or is it they're gonna put another cap on it and make,
We're gonna get more quota. It's gonna be okay.
Right now, we receive 34% of the quota, but we're catching
Not my
about
fish.
60%.
Yeah.
I'll stay out of it.
We're working on it.
We're working on increasing our allocation so we get more of the
We
fish.
catch the most.
yeah, that'd be great. I mean, what is it, commercial guys?
Buy
I mean,
multiples.
They're multiples.
Is it commercial guys catching more? I mean, what is the issue behind it?
Recreational guys are catching them much more.
Mhm.
So we have essentially, so there's a coastwide quota for recreational cobia as well, but it's split up then
Yeah, well, it's less cobia than it's been in the years, you know, here. That's how I got addicted to it, you know what I mean? I used to have a commercial hook and line license, and I used to go cobia fishing before it was a thing. It was the greatest thing in the world to make $200 and get hammered with your buddies. You know what I mean? I thought it was the greatest job in the world, you know what I mean? I was like, dude, you know what I mean? Bought a boat, it's like, hey, we can go ride around the tower and drink beer and goof off for 6 hours and make $200 a piece. Everybody was bored. You know what I mean? But, you know, that's been stopped a long time ago because they stopped you're not allowed but 2 fish.
Yeah.
So that's what stopped that. Which was a good thing, you know, because I ended up looking at it in a different business side, you know, and getting into the eel side of it. But it's, you know what I mean? And I've always felt like, you know, I don't know if does Florida have a reporting thing for cobia?
I mean, the same reporting we have is MREP. Our mandatory harvest reporting program recreationally, it's no good.
Oh, I know it's not. And people are not, I mean, the same thing. You get home from drinking beer, you feel like you're gonna go on there and say, hey, I caught 4 fish today. You won't even say you went fishing. You know, most of your reports is probably coming from your charter captains. People that actually care.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the dudes that are weekend warriors that go jump in a boat and go, you know, ride out in the bay and kill 2 or 3 fish or kill a fish or ride around and catch cobias. You know what I mean? And I think it ought to be some type of law on circle hooks on them. Because of the reason that if you throw a live eel at a cobia, he's dead. I don't care what size he is, because he's gonna swallow it. You're gonna wait for him to swallow it, you're gonna flip the bail open and let him eat, and he's gonna have it in his belly. It doesn't matter what size it is. That was one of the greatest things y'all ever did for the rock fishing thing, was to make it a circle hook for live bait.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, it's actually thoughtful.
All these people think that Omega is killing all these cobias and these seines, and I'm a commercial fisherman, and I don't stand for Omega at all. You know, but I will say this, that, you know, they don't kill what they think. All these cobia they see floating on top of the water, everybody keeps reporting and taking all these videos, it's fishermen.
It's the same video.
Yeah.
It's the same video, they just show it over.
It's just-
Every year it just
seriously,
rehashes itself. with some-
If I
some-
get into a school of cobia and I get 10 fish in front of me and I catch 5 of them and 5 of them are short and I threw a eel at all 5 of them, you know what I mean, that's 5 fish I just killed.
Yeah.
Can't tell me that if I launch a hook down in your throat and pick you up by your lungs, you know what I mean, you're gonna live.
Yeah.
Everybody's over here trying to release their cobia off the side of the boat, and yeah, he might swim away, but I guarantee you after he's been flopping around on the floor, then infection starts and you start seeing cobias with birthmarks on them and stuff like that, that's scarring from fishing. That's what it is. You know, I mean, they don't have scales like a regular fish, you know, if you don't knock a scale off, you know, they have a different type of skin. Once you scar him and lay him in the side of the boat, you can tell every one of them that's been caught, because you can see it on their skin, where they've been flopping around in the back of the boat. Which I understand it, I get it, you know what I mean, you go
Yeah.
fishing, you wanna catch fish, but, you know what I mean, it's the same thing. I would like to see a lot of things change with cobia fishing myself, because if not, we're all gonna kill it out of here, and we're not gonna have any, and I'm gonna be out of business, and it's a damn good business.
Kaylin, who brought forward the doing away with the length samples for Young of the Year?
It was, yeah,
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
It's both of them.
Okay,
It's both of them was theirs.
okay.
It's because they're not catching a lot, so the requirements to them are a burden.
Yeah, the first one was actually a recommendation in the.
Yeah, one was a
yeah.
recommendation, and then North Carolina. was
North
like,
Carolina
"Let's
brought
do
up the
this."
CP.
Yeah, I did talk to
stuff.
the VIMS folks about that one.
I think we keep doing.
Yeah,
what we've
but
been doing.
they wanted to know, because they, I mean, it is a couple hours each, you know, because, probably because they do a bunch of sites.
Mhm.
And so they try to
Yeah.
get a sample from each site each week.
Yeah.
And so it's a couple hours for each site they do, and it's like, because they were thinking if they could reduce the number of samples they have, but there's no variability in that, it's like 58 to 60
Yeah.
millimeters, you know, plus or minus
Yeah.
0.0001.
Yeah.
You know, and, then having to deal with that, you know, not even sure how they do
So I
that.
guess you're from Maine, correct?
Yeah, no, I'm not, I'm also from Virginia.
I got you.
But I work with all of the states that have eel fisheries, so I work with the folks up in Maine as well. And by that, I mean on the management policy side, not on the actual fishing side.
And she works in Virginia too.
Mhm.
We work here.
Yeah.
I got you. How do you know Troy then?
Gosh, just from doing stuff for a long time. I used to actually work for ASMFC. When I worked for ASMFC, I used to talk to Vim survey. So I met a lot of those guys then, and now we work with them all the time. They're our, you know, right hand for science essentially for VMRC.
Yeah, Troy has my job, my old job. I used to have that job there years ago.
So if
Troy's a
the
good
cap
guy,
is
man,
lower,
he
Yeah.
knows what he's talking about all of it too.
are there any management repercussions in that? Are anything, is the board going to be asked to implement anything at all until we go over the cap?
No.
Okay.
I mean, if you do 202,000 pounds, you'll never reach it. If you do 500,000 pounds, you'll actually get somebody, you know, that's gonna do some reporting. You get 700,000 pounds, you're actually gonna get some reporting. You do 200,000 pounds, you'll never reach 200,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because they
They
know
won't
they're gonna
report.
outwork themselves, and they're not gonna report.
Yeah, well,
That-
200,000 pounds is what Maryland catches in a year.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They're not gonna report it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not. Which is sad, you know what I mean, and it sucks, but they're not gonna, you know, give you an information to give themselves out of a job, they all know that.
Yeah. Yeah, so if the cap did come down to 500 something pounds, you think landings are low enough that folks would still report?
I believe so, I mean, I believe so, yes. I mean, 500 to 700,000, yeah, I believe that you would be able to see some people do that, and from what I see on there, you know, 500,000 pounds, you're still not gonna reach a cap.
Yeah.
It's the market is the problem.
Yeah, that's what we've
You
been.
know what I mean, it's not that, you know what I mean, the eels aren't there and everything else, because if the eels were there, I would send, you know, I mean, the eels are there. But if I, you know, I would send guys all the time, you know, go fishing, and I'd say, hey, man, you know, I wanna buy a bunch of eels, you know, and start selling them and et cetera. There's no market.
Yeah.
You can't buy something you can't sell, can't catch something you can't sell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, so it kinda does itself.
Yeah.
So most of your market is now the recreational market.
Recreational market, and I do sell to some Chinese places, pretty much every Chinese guy that comes here, you know what I mean, that's a legal one that deals with us, yeah, I deal with them. And then, you know, I also sell to Delaware Valley, I have Delaware Valley's buy station for Virginia and North Carolina.
Okay. And where are they, do you know where they're shipping?
They're shipping overseas, Philippines, and, you know what I
Okay.
mean, all over there.
Frozen yellow
They
eels?
do them live and frozen,
Really?
they fillet them and everything.
Okay.
And there is another eel farm too that used to be in Carolina, that I think he was like American Eel Farm or something.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a real bad guy to deal with. I did some business with him a couple times. And I don't
He
even
didn't
know if
make
he
it.
still
He didn't
exists.
make it.
No,
No,
he didn't make
they
it.
shut down.
No, okay, that's good, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the one up in Maine has been doing well in terms of like being able to produce more eel, grow
He
them
just
out,
has
grow
the-
them out more.
He has the probability to be able to ship overseas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the problem is, you know, if I thought that there was a market on there, I would jump my ass in a plane and go to Philippines in a heartbeat, start meeting people.
Mm.
You know what I mean? But the problem is, everywhere I've ever tried, Barry shuts it down because he already deals with it. He's got the market on lock, you know what I mean? He can't, you know what I mean? Nobody else is gonna deal with you because of Barry.
Yeah.
You can go in there and tell them you can give them 1,000,000 pounds and they won't deal with you, you know what I mean? Because Barry's been the one for 40, 50 years dealing.
Mm.
I think Barry's dad did it before him.
So they've cornered the market pretty much.
They've cornered it all,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? The little bit that's out there, they have.
Okay.
So if you don't sell your big eels to him and you don't have catfish market and you don't have them, you turn them loose.
Yeah.
You would blow your mind to know the amount of eels I've turned loose because I can't sell them. It would blow your mind.
I thought it would. But yeah,
I mean,
we've been
it's
hearing
just
that
you know
pretty
what I
much
mean?
up
And
and
I've
down the
searched and
coast.
got on Google and sat there for hours. I've spent weeks of my life trying to find people to buy eels.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I have every tackle shop that's left. You know what I mean, that sells them. You know, I'm the only one that deals with them. And I've cornered that market. You know, and they won't deal with other people. Same thing Barry's done.
Yeah.
Took a note of what he did. You know, and when Leon was here, he was the only one that was left that, you know, that bought eels in Virginia. And that's where you see the bigger catches in 2014 and all that
What's
stuff.
that?
Pruitt's, they used to have a eel farm in Whitestone.
Got it.
And they were a buy station for Delaware Valley, just like I am.
Yeah.
But the problem is Delaware Valley won't pay no money and I can't pay the boats none, and I'm embarrassed to tell somebody that they've gotta go to work for nothing.
Yeah.
Cause I'm a commercial waterman myself too, and I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For me to make 25 cents or 50 cents off the eels is nothing, and then, you know what I mean, have to pay so much debt loss and everything, it's just not
Yeah.
worth it. You know, he comes down here and pays $3 and I gotta pay a boat $2 and hold on to a product that's alive for 2.5 to 3 weeks before he ever gets enough to come pick it up is the problem, because then you lose your weight and everything else, you lose money. You've
Yeah.
done it too many times. You know, I mean, it takes nothing to lose $10,000 buying eels, nothing like that. It takes nothing to lose 30, 40,000. Sucks. I've caught them all and killed every one of them. It sucks. I had 30,000 pounds one time. I was in Whitestone. I had collected them all up, had them all together for cobia season and everything. Power outage. From there, every one of them dead. Went outside and puked and cried like a baby.
Yeah.
Didn't know if I was gonna make it, but I learned. Generators.
Lesson learned.
Yeah, lesson learned. You gotta learn the hard
Yeah.
way when you're young.
Yeah.
So which one of those options on 3.2 timeframe, the 3 or 5 year, what would be better for you? So if they set a cap,
I mean,
it would stay in place
Yeah.
for 3 or 5 years.
so that would be the cap for 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this, like, you would be allowed 500 pounds for 500,000 pounds for
Each
3
year
years?
for 3
Each
years.
year for 3 years?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that, I mean, that's not gonna hurt the whole industry at all, you know?
Wonder if you
and-
wanted to have stability by having it be 5 years so that you knew.
Yeah. So yeah, is it better to have it be 5 years, like before it could change, so you know what that cap is, or does it matter that much?
I don't think it would matter, because you're not gonna see, you know, the markets are gonna go down, just like if you take another cut on cobia, that's gonna drive it down. When it went to a 2 fish, I sold literally so many less eels, it wasn't even funny. I mean, like $70,000, $80,000 worth a month that I wasn't selling. Because people, when they go buy 2 eels, you know, and you can only catch 2 fish, you only need 2 eels. Those are the people that are smart, they're going into a tackle shop like him, they go in there and buy 3 or 4 eels. The people that go in there and buy a dozen are the ones that are going out there and throwing it every 30-inch cobia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm curious. This is just from my own knowledge. How much is an eel if you buy it at a tackle shop?
About $3 to $4. Some places are high as $5 to $6 a piece. Sometimes you can get larger eels that go up to $15 to $20 a piece.
That's a pretty good markup.
Yeah.
And what are you selling it to them for?
I sell them to them by the pound at $8 to $10 a pound, depending on how
Okay.
far I gotta go to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, you know,
That's
it's
smart
markets
being
down there in
a-
Florida and
that's
stuff
being-
like that, but I just don't, you know what I mean? It's the hassle of driving to Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to put $10,000 with $20,000 worth of eels in the back of a truck and hit somebody
Hope for the
halfway. and-
best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's got its ups and downs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Florida used to have a eel supplier. They used to have Marty.
Mhm.
You know, and I never even knew that Florida was even had eels to catch. That blew my mind when I even seen that they had 1% of it.
Yeah. They don't have much though.
Not much.
It's
Every
pretty
state has
small.
some.
Yeah, I feel like Florida's commercial industry is, you know, a whole lot more controlled than here. You know what I mean? I feel like, you know, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but, you know, just like, for instance, crabbing. You know, you go crabbing, you go eeling. I don't get checked. I go oystering, I see a VMRC officer every day. Why? Why don't I get checked? You know, I've been fishing for a month and a half. I haven't even seen a VMRC officer in a month and a half. I go oystering, I'm gonna see him every day.
That's where the money's at.
Cause that's where I get checked. It's not the money for the watermen, it's the money for the buyers.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I don't even understand, you know, I go oystering for 3 or 4 months, 3 or 4 weeks out of a year. I hate it because there's no money in it. Cause I have more bills that are built up than that. I'm probably one of the only, you know, percentage of the watermen that even pay taxes. You know what I mean? If you go pay taxes and you make $1,500 and you pay taxes on it, you take 35% of that right off the top.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Why am I gonna keep a 40-foot workboat up and keep a $100,000 boat and go make $200? I can make $200 at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They pay $18 an hour starting out. You know what I mean? And they promise 10-hour shifts. That's $180. Why would I do that to myself?
Mhm.
I don't know why watermen do that. I think it's the most stupid thing in the world. If I don't have $1,000 worth of product every day, I don't make money. You know, and it's hard to say that. You know, it's just like, you know, VMRC, it's kind of like they just, you know what I mean, they're told to look after the oystermen more because they've been prone to have more problems with them, because they check them.
Mhm.
They don't check crabbers. Now, there's crabbers been crabbing for 50 years, they got 1,500 pots overboard. Do you think they've ever got a ticket for it? No. There's crabbers that got 6, 7 different licenses,
Mhm.
and they're not on the boat. They got all their kids or their grandkids, everybody's got a license.
Yeah.
so he can put 1,500 pots over. And they're not on the boat. It's just robbing the industry. You know what I mean? It's just, work yourself right, right out of it. That's why it's like a dire end of it all. It's just like eel potting and all that stuff. You look at the money. It's just like elk fishery. These people that are here, they're the smart ones that are doing the black marketing on it. They don't pay for licenses. They're not dealing with, any law enforcement. They've been doing it for years. You know what I mean? To get paid cash. Have no taxes. No gear. Pantyhose, $2. I've got $300,000 worth of gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I sit around and look at everybody and I'm like, damn, my buddy's got a $500,000 house. I got a $200,000 house. Oh, that's because I got $300,000 so I can go to work. You know what I mean? And I'm the only one that's my age that I can say, and there might be one or two more.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that they have what they have is because they're in the seafood industry.
How old are you again?
31.
Yeah, 9% of our fishermen are under 30.
And where's that at? Here?
Yeah, in this state, and 70.4% are over 50. 34% are over 70, so I hear you there, because it's like, young people aren't getting into it, and I understand why.
They're smart.
Yeah.
I was a dumbass when I did it. You know what I mean? I was an idiot, and I just kept on going with it. And if it wasn't for me having tackle shops and all that, because I own tackle shops too.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I just love commercial fishing.
Yeah.
I love it when a pot full of eels, or you start catching something good and you can throw my hands together, happy and stuff. It's just different. It's just something I love to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the only reason I do it. It's not for to make I can become a seafood buyer and make way more money than I do catching it, but it's how miserable do you want to be in life?
Yeah.
I think that every day.
Every day. But it's a lot into it, man. And I mean, I can go on and on about that, but it's like, if you set it at 200,000 pounds, you're never going to reach it.
That's helpful.
That is very helpful.
Yeah. And
You know what I mean? You're just screwing yourself, because once again, you're just going to be looking at a laughing stock. I just ain't going to report. That's all they're all going to say. Every eeler's going to do that.
Mhm.
They might report 100 pounds. Then you're going to think all of a sudden when you look at all the catches in the year and be like, dude, what happened?
Yeah.
Well, what happened is they're not going to work themselves out of a job. They're not that dumb. They screw the tax man, they'll screw you. You know what I mean? And that's one thing about it. You see all these watermen around here driving old trucks and all that. It's not because of the money or whatever. It's because they don't have credit. They don't have tax. They don't have proof of income.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
It's
sad to
all
say.
helpful to have all the context, so.
It is. I
Thanks
mean,
for
I figured
coming.
I would do it so you can see a bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you cut it too low, they're not going to take themselves out of it, because of the two
Yeah.
people that are left eeling are people that have been eeling forever and they just love eeling. You're never going to see anybody that's new into the waterman business go in here and buy eel pots.
Yeah.
If I got out of it, Virginia's done. I can tell you that.
Mhm.
It'll be the last time you see an eel at Ocean East. You know what I mean? Or any tackle shop or anywhere. If I got out of it, the whole state is done. They'll never find a way to get them. Because Virginia doesn't have the eels that we have here. You can send all the fishermen you want, they're not gonna catch bait eels. They're not gonna catch an eel that you can catch, go cobia fishing with. It happens up north. Catch some here, but nothing to do with. But it's just like I said, if you take, you down-tracked eels, you go from Maine. You start with, that's your big elver eel fishing. They have more elver eels than we ever will have here.
Mhm.
And then you keep on going down, where the eels drift down as they get older. Maryland has, 90% bait. I bet 90% of that catch that they had at 200,000 pounds was bait eels. And they're sent, you know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
deal with Maryland because I had a deal with William Clayton. Hey, I won't mess with any business north of Maryland, you stay out of Virginia. And that's how it went. We had that agreement, 5 years ago. He's been good to it, I've been good to it. He sells to one place at Smith Minnows Farm, and that's it. And I don't care about that because I'm not driving all the way up
Yeah.
there. You know what I mean, for the little bit of stuff he wants. And
Yeah.
I don't even know why he does it. But like I said, it ain't but 3 buyers left.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't know how many of y'all have, how many do y'all have on record that take eels or get eels from anywhere or do any bait tailing?
There's about 20 harvesters listed at the peg, give or take for the past 2 years.
Oil
That was-
dealers, you say.
Dealers, a lot of the people in not a lot of people, some of the people, they have that self-buyer's permit, so they might be linked
Yeah.
two ways
Mhm.
where they're cashing their own stuff and then they're selling it. Buyers
Yeah,
specifically. I'm not
that's,
sure.
they do that so they can sell it to me.
Yeah, so it might all be,
Everyone on the UC with a
Funneled,
buyer's
yeah,
license,
through,
you
yeah.
know what I mean, has it through me. Joey Maziak, all of them, you know what I mean? He buys eels from several different watermen and then sells them to me. But, and I bet, you know what I mean, you gotta realize when you, if you buy eels, let's say you buy, I don't know, let's say you're going to buy 1,000 pounds of eels, right? And you look at the paper trail that's on it now, and it's bad to say, you know, and it's probably bad for me to tell you all this, is 1,000 pounds of eels that you buy and you bring home. Do you know how many watermen report on that? Do you know how many watermen look at me and say, hey, are you doing paperwork on this? A lot. And it's bad to say. You cut that to 200,000 pounds, I bet you won't see 100,000 pounds cut. I'll bet my house.
Mm.
It's honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the honesty.
Just like all the whole seafood industry, everyone that's reporting things, bullshit. And that's coming from a commercial waterman side of it. You think how many cash buyers come here and how many cash people deal with people with cash and it never gets reported? It's a lot.
Yeah.
I've said it's a problem, I've said it's a good thing. I've said it's, you know, both ways. I can see it both ways, being a thing that hurts you in the commercial industry, being a fisherman, and I can see it where it benefits you. Now, what happens if, you know, you had 1 million pounds of eels that were caught?
If the cap was set where it is and then we caught 1 million pounds,
Yeah.
so that's where the states would end up having to reduce their landings. Now, the way they go about doing that is not written into this management plan.
So if
they
the quota, let's say you set it at 202,000 pounds, and
Mhm.
next year they caught 300,000
Right.
pounds. Is that gonna, as soon as 200,000 pounds, are we gonna get notified that the season shut down?
No, so we don't do.
Yeah, it's like a lag.
It's a coast-wide
Yeah.
reporting too, so we're not gonna know what's going on because not everybody's live reporting. So
Yeah,
if you're
so-
reporting online, we're getting it really quickly, but the entire coast isn't
They're
necessarily
doing
reporting online.
paper reports or what have you, and so I don't know, we don't know what the total landings for 2023 were yet. So there's gonna be a time lag where if, let's say, you caught 300,000 this year and the cap was 200,000, then we wouldn't know that until
The following year. and then you'd have to
2025,
adjust, so it'd
and
be
then
2026
they would
before
have
you-
to
Yeah,
implement
there's
some
lags.
kind of change in management to bring landings down for the following year. But, so there's gonna be a time lag there if you were to go over the cap, and it has to go over the cap for 2 years in a
Twice
row.
consecutively.
So if you went over once in, 2025, you go to 300,000 pounds, over 200,000, nothing happens unless something happens in 2026. Yeah.
Now, can I ask this too? Why are they attacking the yellow eels and, you know, back to the elver eels, why are they attacking that out of all of it?
You mean, why are we considering options that only are looking at yellow eels?
Mm-hmm.
So our stock assessment looks at the trends in different life stages. And so we have data that shows a trend in the yellow eel abundance index, and that's declining and at, its lowest levels. So based on that, the stock assessment says we should reduce mortality on yellow eels. But we don't have like a population estimate for all of the glass plus yellow plus silver. We don't have that information.
Well, silver eels you can't catch.
Yeah, but
You know, unless you're in a trough.
Right.
They're not gonna pop because they stop eating. It's the weirdest animal I've ever seen in my life. I've only seen a few in my life that have
I think
actually
I've only
completely
seen
done
one.
it, but
yeah.
I don't know if y'all ever seen it, but it's one of the weirdest things ever. I mean, they don't have no butthole. You know, I mean,
I
they
have not
don't,
seen one.
it grows over.
Yeah.
It stops the animal from eating anymore. They
Mm.
stop eating. And it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. It looks like took a little skin patch and just like went to the surgery, you know,
Like a
got a
belly
little
button?
scar on the butt. You know, it's weird, it's just, I mean, it's the only animal I've ever seen do that.
Yeah, they're interesting animals.
That's why I said they're very interesting in the beginning of it, you know, you can
Yeah.
you can never figure them out.
Yeah, well, and that's why we have so much trouble with, you know, knowing how the stock is doing.
And that's like the
knowing
stock,
all this
you know,
stuff.
I mean, I go back to the stock being that way is because there's not anybody left doing it. You know, in the nineties and eighties and seventies, that's all I hear my dad talk about. Oh, man, we only had 100 pots back then, we catch, you know, 1,500, 2,000 pounds a day, everybody was doing it. It was 8, 9 eelers in this creek, 8, 9 eelers in this creek. You know, I mean, it was floats all up and down the shoreline here, and it's nobody left doing it. I don't have no competition. I don't see anybody. And if I do see anybody, I told them to go there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not, it's just a thing, you know, it's only a few people left. And every one of them that does it here left is, you know, deals with me. I can name off every one of them that's on it. You know, and it's just a. it's
So
just a
if you
different
had,
thing.
just to get a better idea, if you had to set the level here, which one would you pick?
I would probably go with like 518. You know, and that's giving y'all, you know, I mean, the poundage, you know, a cut on the poundage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or, I mean, if you wanted to put it at 716, it'd be fine too, but 518, you know, if you put it at 200, you're gonna do nothing but screw yourself.
Just so you're aware, I sit on that board, I'm
Yeah.
leaning towards 518.
Yeah.
So thank you. I mean, if you do 200,000, they're not gonna report.
Yeah.
Good.
You'll never get it.
Wait,
You'll-
since-
I don't think that's
It's
gonna
gonna be
Land
problematic at that low.
Yeah.
In our state alone.
be, I mean, I mean, that's not.
It
Maryland
would
alone,
be.
yeah,
Maryland's
Maryland
not.
is gonna go over that by itself, so.
Yeah, nobody's.
So how many in the state of Virginia was caught? How many pounds?
So, let's see, 40 sometimes, like 40?
40, 45.
Yeah. Pull out the.
What were you looking at, this?
Yes.
Oh, there's the exact numbers, yeah. Yeah, 46, 35, and I think 2023, the preliminary was around 42.
Okay. Which seems more normal. 2020 is a weird year, so I'm counting that one kind of out.
Yep. And you see the difference in it between 2018 when Leon went out of business?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's it just bobbled
And you
down.
look at Maryland's numbers too, because he was an eel, Maryland eel buyer too. And you look at Carolina's, because he bought all the eels in Carolina.
Hmm.
Huh.
That was just from Leon leaving the business.
What year?
Anywhere from 2018 and below, that was Leon.
Gotcha.
So you can drop almost coastwide,
Yeah.
well, especially in the Atlantic.
That's what you see in 2019 is when I took it over.
Yeah.
That was the year I came into business. And that's when I stopped dealing with Delaware Valley because I can't deal with quarters. That's what that's from.
Yeah. Interesting.
Now, you look at everybody else, they're, you know, pretty close to it, but once again, it's the markets. You know what I mean? And you look at when Bill Clayton came into business. I think Bill Clayton came into business in 2018. That's gonna be your Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. That's gonna be his harvests. Look at the reports then. They stopped reporting because Bill don't do paperwork. That's what that is. They didn't stop fishing. That's William Clayton. That's what everybody calls him Bill.
You see, I mean, that's a lot of it in there.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people ain't gonna talk to you like I did.
No, I know.
You know what I
We
mean?
appreciate
I've
it.
never been to one
Yeah.
of these meetings. I've always thought it was just like, my word was just peeing in the corner. You know what I mean? That's all it was.
I mean, we listen, that's why we have these, like, that's
Yeah.
why we're here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, public comment helps shape the decisions that I make
And being
at these
honest,
meetings.
Especially at this stage, because
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
with-
it's just like, if you just did taxes alone, like tax money that comes off of eel fishery. You know what I mean? You do the taxes at every one of these tackle shops, all the sales tax, all the federal tax. You take over eels, they do nothing for nobody. They're cash deals. You know what I mean? It's Chinese people buying eels at cash. It's all underneath the table, it's all black market. Even the buyers ain't paying you a check that even do it. I guarantee you can go up there and tell them to see their checkbook from them and they won't even have one written to a buyer, to a waterman that's selling them over eels. It'd be a cash deal. There's no tax money involved in that. It's nothing for the state. Why are they allowed to still do it? There's no revenue for the state. It's no revenue for, the United States of America. It's Just making a foreign country rich.
Yeah.
Just gotta catch them, that's the problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know.
You think about our little
But
piece
see,
of the
that's-
world
that's
with
the thing,
fisheries,
is
how often
because-
is that going on in everything else in this country, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like you take like an officer of the law, for instance, anywhere in the world, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
The best officers are involved in what they're catching, you know what I mean? You take a VMRC officer, what does he know about a pair of pantyhose and some L reels? Nothing.
Well, we can let them know about that.
Yeah,
I mean,
sounds like-
They can let them know about it, you know what I mean? And it's a thing, you know, are they gonna go up to these places and check for it? Cause the places they gotta go check for it, they gotta get out their boat and go get muddy. They're not getting up there in a 24-foot boat with twin motors on it, that's not gonna happen, they're not gonna find them. They'll ride up to a head of a creek and turn around and say, I ain't seen no pantyhose, I ain't seen no stick sticking up, or, you know what I mean,
You
look
gotta-
like out of
you
the
gotta look
ordinary.
at those places, I mean, I've been to 100 places in the Virginia coast, looking for places to put eel traps and stuff, and you're hiking in a lot of these
You gotta
places.
get
Yeah.
dirty, ain't nobody gonna get dirty to do that. That's why it's a huge black market,
It was
because they
marsh,
can't
yeah.
get caught.
Yeah, we'll get muddy tomorrow. Be out there.
Yeah,
We
one
all
was,
send us
one was
pictures with
pretty
the war
easy to
paint
get
on
through.
there. I've been there, it's a stinky job.
I think it was Gardy's is in the Rappahannock, isn't it?
I've never even heard of that one.
Yeah, Gardy's.
See, a lot of these freshwater dams, you know, eels stop at a certain point for us to be able to catch them.
Yeah,
I don't understand it, because I've always heard for hundreds of years that everybody's been talking, well, not hundreds of years, but for a lot of years, that eels go up the river, you know what I mean? But you keep going up and keep going up, and there's a sweet spot, and you're like, oh my God, all the eels are up here. Oh man, I just know if I go up here a little bit further, it's just gonna be more eels than I ever seen. Then you go up there, it's nothing.
yeah,
It's because they stop. The only eels that go up there is this big.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Stuff that we can't catch. You know, everybody used to think that these big giant eels are climbing the dams and going in there and breeding, but that was a complete wrong
Just
case.
the little ones are going in over the dams.
You know, and that's because that's just where they go for shelter.
Yeah.
And another reason, you know what I mean, I say that, you know, the catfish is the places that these small eels are going, they're dying,
Yeah,
because they're getting eaten.
yeah.
They're getting
Yeah.
sucked up by some Chinese dude in pantyhose. You know what I mean? And it's just,
You just wait for them to go over that dam and bass just sit there and the sunfish.
you know, everything in catfish, that's another one. And then when they're on the way back down from the dams,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean, they're getting
Yeah.
hammered by the catfish until they get out of the brackish water.
Yeah,
You get too much rainwater, all the catfish come down, start eating up hell.
yeah.
When it literally rains, you can literally see the catfish come down, and you can literally be crabbing or eeling and watch them disappear.
Yeah.
You start seeing the catfish, they start disappearing. And then you kill some of the catfish, and you look inside of them, what do they got in them? Crabs and eggs. And crabs and, eels and little fish, mud toads,
Probably eggs.
everything. You know what I mean? And it's different, you know, and, you know, I really hope y'all don't do the 200,000 pound, because you're gonna do nothing but, you know,
Yeah, no,
that's-
to be honest with you,
Appreciate that.
don't, yeah, I mean.
I don't think
I don't
there's
think
a
that's
chance in-
gonna happen, just based on some of the conversations that have already happened from.
And have you been
different
talking to
states.
Troy in the last couple of days? I mean, he called me in the last couple of days about all this.
Yeah.
I mean, he told you the same thing, you guys won't report.
No, we've talked. He's our technical committee member, so he and I talk.
And he told you himself, he just stopped reporting.
Yeah, he knows.
That's everybody.
So if you have other folks that, you know, either.
Oh, I'll try
Lauren
to,
or
but the
whoever-
couple people that I talked to about
Yeah.
now, I ain't going up there wasting my evening, that's it.
No, and they
I
can
mean,
send
that's,
in.
they
like
said
a-
they gonna do what they
That
want.
should be in the email I sent you too. So-
Yeah, I sent that to,
Yeah,
I
send it,
forwarded it to
send
a
it to
lot of people
whoever,
already.
Yeah.
you think
They
would want
could
to submit a
send
public
in
comment
comments
for
and
sure.
stuff.
Yeah, write a public comment at least if they don't wanna
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to get a lot of people to come, I even told them, hey man, we can jump in the big truck, I'll bring everybody up here.
See, I was gonna tell you, you know, you said about your input. Your input, you know, at this stage and earlier is great, we really appreciate it. What happens too often, they wait until there's 9 people up there.
Yeah.
Our board, and they come in here, and that's the very last step. And by then, it's like, you know, your options
It's
are
one of
limited.
two.
Yeah.
And so,
One of three.
I tell everybody I could talk to, get involved early, if you know this thing, come to something like this, talk to us, talk to folks and say, this is what I can support and what I can't support.
Yeah.
Because then when Shanna sits on the board, so she'll be sitting there for Virginia at the board when we're voting on this, so, you know,
So you're actually a board member here.
she's,
At ASMFC, yeah.
Okay.
So
we all
I
have different
represent
species that we sit on.
At ASMFC,
Okay.
Virginia's interest, so that's why
I
it's
have the
important
honor
for
of
people to
having
come.
that
We are
image, so
listening. I
Sounds
mean,
like
I'm gonna go home and make dinner too, but,
I'm the
you know, I'm here because I
since I
care
started
to
on the
be-
commission.
we're
Well, I
interested.
appreciate that. You know what I mean, I've always felt like, you know, I mean, a lot of people in the BMRC and, you know, FIMS and a lot of that, and I've worked with FIMS.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I used to go work with a girl named Amon there for 4 or 5 years, you know, about eels and stuff. You know, about red disease on eels and Vibrio and everything like that, which nearly killed me one time, but yeah. Yeah. And I was, when I first got into
Oysters?
eels. No, eels. When I
Yeah?
first got into eels, I went to pick up a eel barrel and scrape my hand right here, and I was in ICU for 16 days. They
Yeah.
had to fly a specialist in from Europe. They were gonna cut my arm off and everything. That's when I first met Troy.
Yeah. Sounds
His
like
eels. He's the one that did it. It was his eels.
He owes you.
Yeah, he'll tell you
I
about it.
almost lost my arm.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, yeah.
keep working, and next thing you know, your arm is getting inflamed and.
Yeah, I'm lucky I've never gotten any
Yeah.
cuts in the water.
Yeah, well, if you do, you better spray some stuff in it. I'm a firm believer.
Yeah.
I used